We'll start with the prayers. Om Sahana Bhavato Sahanao Bhunakto Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Panchadasi, 10th chapter, Nataka Deepa Prakaranam. This text is a very important text for those people who are interested to go very deep inside their own mind and realize the truth revealed by the scriptures, the Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, and the Brahma Sutra. The three sources of knowledge reveal the truth, but the seeker doesn't know how to realize within himself. So that is why texts like this, Panchadasi or Vichara Sagara, are extremely important for those seekers who want to progress more and more deep within themselves. When a student comes to a teacher, the teacher starts with the basic text like Tattvabodha, Atmabodha, and sees the interest of the students. And once he sees that the student is still very keen, then he will introduce the Bhagavad Gita. And then, still if the interest continues, the Upanishads are taught. Still there is more interest, Brahma Sutra is taught. And finally, when the student goes back to teacher and say, oh teacher, I have still not got what the Upanishads is trying to reveal to me and what I am today, there is a huge gulf. Then the teacher says, yes, let me teach you Panchadasi. So this text, as I have introduced before, 15 chapters, we are doing the 10th chapter, 26 verses. Each of these chapters can be studied separately. That's why I've just taken this chapter. And the depth of this text is amazing because each chapter goes deep into the mind to reveal the pure Chaitanya, which is my real nature. So whenever we study this text, each and every verse when we do, we must keep this in mind. This text is talking about my real nature. And unless until you are very, very keen to realize the nature of yourself, you should not study this text because this text is technical by nature. It introduces a lot of technical terms in every chapter. But the beauty is in every chapter at the end, you feel you have learned something and you have gone a little bit deeper into your mind. Every chapter. That is the beauty of this Swami Vidyaranya. And he uses technical terms. So you should be prepared. I will learn new words in Sanskrit, but they will take me more deeper and deeper so that one day I will realize my real nature. We have covered 6 verses. The first 5 verses are basically introduction. And from the 6th to the 10th verse is the method of inquiry. What and how should we inquire? This is a very important portion because these mantras are able to teach us how I should think when I want to know myself, my nature. You see the thought process of how Vidyaranya teaches. Every verse is very, very specific and very, very clear. And it takes us deeper and deeper. Because you see, in order to reach our mind, which is an invisible instrument, the only way we can study the mind is through the scriptural words. There is nothing else. You can study psychology, you can study, but then they give you a superficial glimpse of the mind, but they do not go deeper. It is only these scriptures which make you go deeper, because there is a jewel which is hidden inside our mind, a secret. In the Bhagavad Gita also, Lord Krishna says there is a secret. I want to teach you that secret. Guhya tamam shastram. So there is a secret which which I don't know today. There is a treasure in my own mind. I have to slowly unravel it. To what extent we are able to unravel it depends on your keen desire. You desire, you will get it. Therefore, whenever we study this text, my suggestion is, after the session is over, before the next session, go through the notes which I have sent to you. That will be a good revision of what we have studied, because these notes are will help you after the session to recap what we have studied. So with that introduction, let me go now to the place where we stopped last week. The 6th verse, I'll just brush it up a little bit because we have had a long break. The 6th verse is the start of the methodology of inquiry. And see how Vidyaranya approaches the topic. He says, the one who is thinking that I am the agent, agent means a doer. He is using a mind, which is instrument. And these actions which follow, when we use the mind, are either internal or external. Internal means it is within the mind, or actions are outside the mind in the world of objects. The 4 main factors which are very important for any transaction to happen are the witness, the Sakshi, which is housed in the body. It is not only in the body, but it is everywhere. But here we should note, when we are talking about how do we act in the world, you should note that there is a consciousness principle which is there in this body. And this consciousness principle is the reflected consciousness. It is not the original consciousness. We say it is original consciousness when you talk about the totality of the consciousness, not which is limited in this body. This is a very important, see the methodology of Vidyaranya. Once we have understood one chapter properly, you will understand the other chapters much more easily, because he uses a similar methodology in all the chapters. And the similar terminology he uses. And So the reality is the consciousness, which is called as Sakshi or witness, because it does not participate in the actions. It is an independent entity. Then, what are the three other terms he introduces? These are all technical terms: Pramatta, Pramanam, Prameya. The moment I put on my mind, the hat of my mind when I wake up, I, the pure consciousness, the Sakshi, am called the Pramatta. A Pramatta means a knower. And what do I do with this reflection in the mind? So the reflected consciousness in the mind is called as the Pramatta, the agent of action. What are the two types of actions we do? Either we are a doer or we are enjoying. And what is the Pramanam instrument which I use? It is the knowing instrument. It can be the sense organs, or it can be the vritti in the mind. Through this combination of vritti and the sense organs and the organs of action, I operate in the world. And whatever objects which I interact with is called as Prameya. So 4 factors. Be very clear. If you do not understand, you can ask me at the end of the session, put a question in the chat box. I will repeat again. These 4 factors are very important. So I, without the mind and the sense organs operation, is called as Sakshi. I, with the mind and the sense organs and the instruments like the mind, the senses, the same Sakshi is called as Pramatta. And I am using the Pramanam, the instrument, and I am interacting with the Prameya. The ego is the I, the Pramatta, the small self. The moment the self, the small self becomes visible, the Sakshi goes into the background. In sleep, the Sakshi is very much there, and we can understand that in our mind, that the Sakshi alone is there in our sleep state, without any identification with the instrument. What happens when we use the mind? The mind projects thoughts based on the vasanas, the likes and dislikes. The light of consciousness in the mind is, in the mind there are 2 things. One is the mind itself, which is matter. The second thing is the reflection of the consciousness, which is the life principle in the entire universe. So when this consciousness falls on the mind and the mind wakes up, the mind becomes a Pramatta. It lends the consciousness to the sense organs, and the sense organs get the life. They are enlivened by consciousness. The window to the whole world opens up, and I become the ego interacting with the world. In sleep, what happens? The ego, the window gets closed. Therefore, the mind, emotions, the perceptions, the thoughts, they all stop. But I, the Sakshi, which is the illuminator of these three, Pramatta, Pramanam, and Prameya, continues to exist. That Sakshi is my real nature. The person, when we say, I am Shama, I am Chitra, I am so and so, that person is time bound. That person is in time, and it is the reflected consciousness together with the mind. But I, the pure awareness or the consciousness, is timeless, limitless. It is the whole, complete, purnaha. So mind in the vyavahara, in the field of transactions, is called as Pramatta, Pramanam, Prameya. Three put together gives us the experience of the world. Dakshinamurti Stotram, we have seen Nana Chidghato Darasti Tamaha. This is a very important verse which talks about the same topic. What we are discussing, exactly the same is being talked there. Now, there are two parts of the mind. One is the Pramatta part, subject part, and the second part is the instrument part. And whatever gets revealed is an object. So sometimes the mind is referred as an instrument. I am a thinker. When you say I am a thinker, that means you're using the mind as an instrument to produce thoughts and think on a topic. When you say I am the body, I am born on so-and-so date, you are using the mind as a subject, I. Same mind. It is used as an instrument. It is used as a subject, aham and idam. We should note, because this is the way we are going deeper into our mind. So the Pramatta, the knower, rises in Jagrat and resolves in sleep. The knower Pramatta. The knower means what? The reflected consciousness. Together with the mind, it becomes a knower principle in this body. And the Sakshi principle reveals the instrument, which is the mind, and also the objects through the mind. So, in short, we can say that Sakshi reveals the Triputi, which means Pramatta, Pramanam, and Prameya. And we have seen before that when we talk about duality in the Jagrat Avastha or the Swapna Avastha, that duality is called as Dvaitam, and Advaitam means non-duality. So non-duality is Satyam and duality is Mithya. These are two technical terms again. Whenever we are seeing the world, we are bound to the world by nature, because I am the body and the world is different. This is the duality. And whenever we are able to understand I am the pure Sakshi, that is called as liberation. So with that sixth mantra's introduction, a good summary. Now we will introduce the seventh mantra. Again, each of this mantra, like I said, is we are going to go deeper. You know, the study of this chapter is, you will enjoy it when you understand all these aspects. In the seventh mantra, what Vidyaranya says is, the internal modification of the mind takes the form of I. It makes him an agent. That means I say aham karta. The external modification assumes the form of this. So there are two ways in which the reflection falls and then my mind reacts. One way is, I am an agent, I am the subject. And the second way is, I am seeing the world, which is called as idam. And what is antaha and bahihi? Antaha means anything which is inside the body, which is the ego, karta, bhokta, the seer, hearer. This is all with reference to the subject I. I told you the mind can work in two ways. One is it becomes a subject itself. Actual subject is what? Sakshi. That is my real nature, which is what? Pure consciousness without any upadhi, without any medium of transaction. See, when you go through these verses, you will realize the self very easily. Very easy. Very, very easy to realize the self. Especially there is no other text which takes you to the core of your personality like the Panchadasi. Straight away it reveals. I mean, he is a great teacher. Vidyaranya Swami is a great teacher. He understood the scriptures very well, and then he could write verses, 1,500 verses in Panchadasi, where he keeps on, explaining that concept of how to realize in your own self. So, antaha, it means within. Whenever we say within, it means a subject. And whenever the same mind goes through the sense organs and goes outside to reveal the objects like a flower, like a mountain, like people outside, like other human beings, like animals, and the whole world, the anatma world. The moment it tries to know the anatma, it is called as bahihi. He's going to use this antar and bahihi in a few other verses in the end. So just keep in mind what he means by antar and what he means by bahihi. So when the same I uses the organs, the sense organs like the eyes, the ears, it listens to some music, then what happens is that pure consciousness, which is getting reflected in the mind, it goes out and listens to the talk. It listens to music. So what is the real life in us? It is this consciousness principle, this knowledge principle. Antarbhukaha iti esha vritti kartaram mullike. So only when there is an I thought, this antar mukatwam happens. In sleep, there is no person, there is no personality. You, the doctor, you, the lawyer, everything is resolved into one homogeneous mass of consciousness, in which there is no differentiation at all. So this person, which we are talking about as the ego I, is a shadow of the pure being. And this is what we are trying to do in meditation, understanding the truth of the pure being. The pure being exists without upadhi, without using the medium. Two words which I introduced last week in the meditation session, sa upadhi, nir upadhi. Keep that in mind. In order to reach the pure consciousness in meditation, remember these two words. They are $1 million words. Sa upadhi, nir upadhi. Whenever I'm using the body, the sense organs, the organs of action, it is called as sa upadhi. And whenever I, the consciousness, am not using the body or the mind, it is called as nirupadhi. My real state is pure consciousness. That is the life. The mind, it only appears and disappears. Throughout the day, the mind is there. With the I thought, aham vritti, and the idam vritti, the mind operates throughout the day. Bahir mukhaha iti esha bahyam vastav idam ulliket. Thought is a movement originating in the being, the pure being. Where does all the thought come from? The powerhouse of the thoughts is the pure consciousness. Can you ever doubt that pure consciousness, the pure being, is not there? Or it is not my nature? You can never doubt it, because I am always there. At any time, did you feel I am not there? Except in sleep. That is only it is only a shadow. It is only but you are there. Nobody says I was not there. You don't know in what form you were there, but you are there. Nobody says I was not there in sleep. So all the time we are there, but we don't know our nature of pure being. A thought manifests, reveals the being. Why do we say it reveals? Because there is no consciousness in the thought. The consciousness in the thought is the real being. I cannot see the consciousness, but I know the thoughts. I want to do this. I want to run today. I want to go shopping. I want to do this. Whenever you get the thoughts, you remember that it is a reflection of my pure self. Again and again, during your waking hours, when you do this separation, that a thought is only a manifesting my real nature, what happens is I create a distance between the mind and the shadow, between the Sakshi and the mind. The shadow of the mind is only a thought. Mind is an instrument. We recognize the moment. Mind is a moment of thought. Where are all the thoughts moving? Where, if I ask you, where do you feel your emotions? I love something. If I ask you in your body, where is this love? Where is I love somebody? Where is this love in your body? It is in the mind. And where is the mind? There is no point. You can say it is in the brain. But Vedanta says that this mind is a temporary thought movement. That's all. And where is the thought movement happening? It is not in the external space. but it is in the space of consciousness. The mind has, that is why it is called as Chid Abhasa. In the reflected consciousness, the thoughts are moving. All of us, your thoughts, my thoughts, everybody's thoughts is all movement in the consciousness. I am the user of the mind instrument. And what do I use the mind for? To cognize the world. Cognize means see the form, see the color, listen to music, listen to the talk. All this I do with the help of the mind. So, what we have studied is there is a reality which is called as consciousness. There is a mind which is the window for the aham thought to come and for the idam thought to come. The idam thought refers to the sense organs when they perceive the world. That is all called as idam thought. If I am not perceiving the sense objects through the sense organs, it is only the I thought which is aham. That aham can identify with the heart, with the lungs, with the body, with the pranas, and it can say, I am hungry. At that time, it is aham, the subject. The mind itself becomes a subject. The mind itself becomes an instrument. And the world is outside the mind, outside the body. The world of sense objects are there, which are cognized by the mind through vrittis, through thoughts. Aham thought and idam thought. Aham thought is identified with the body and mind. It is constant. Throughout the day, aham, aham, I. Whenever I use I, that I never changes, but the idam changes. I'm reading a book. I'm seeing TV. I'm going for a walk. All these are all idam. I am karta. Ego is a false entity, shadow of the Sakshi. The Sakshi can exist by itself without forming the shadow, as in sleep. But when I get up in the morning, I form the shadow in the mind, in my own mind. And this origin for all thoughts is the pure consciousness. All thoughts rise in consciousness. They exist in consciousness. They dissolve in consciousness. Mayeva sakalam jatam, mayi sarvam pratishtitam, mayi. This is the Kaivalya Upanishad, the 20th mantra. Very important mantra, which is sometimes in one mantra itself, you can go to the core of your essence, of your Atma. So this mantra, which I quoted just now, the 20th verse of Kaivalya Upanishad, it can straight take you to the Atma. One verse. Na tatra suryo bhati, na chandra tarakam. Again, another beautiful verse. Comes in 3 Upanishads, Katha Upanishad, Mundak Upanishad, Svetashvara Upanishad. Brilliant verse. It takes straight to the Atma, the light of consciousness. You don't have to remember the 700 verses of the Gita. You don't have to remember at all the Upanishadic verses. Choose 4 or 5 verses for your meditation. Anytime you want to meditate on of who you are with this knowledge, which we are getting in the Panchadasi, I give you a guarantee that you will not have a difficulty in understanding your truth, your true nature. Just follow these talks every Wednesday. After this chapter, I hope I can take chapter 3, chapter 5. Just follow every Wednesday. Listen to the class, go through this, revise the class either by re-listening to the talk or going through the notes. You will realize your true self. Give yourself one or this study of all the 10 chapters, 15 chapters might take about 2 years. But success is guaranteed. Because it's a wonderful text which reveals and goes to the core of your personality. So hunger happens in the body, action to go to the dining room happens in the organs of action. So when I use the organs of action, my hand moves, my legs moves, and then I go because that is I, the consciousness, am using the mind as an instrument and then using the body as an instrument to go and eat something, walk, to go shopping, to go to the office, to work. I, the Sakshi, am akarta. I, the ego, the Pramatta, is the karta and bhokta. When we develop a space in the mind between the Sakshi and the Pramatta, then we are sattva guna pradhanam. Because in this body, the matter principle is controlled by 3 gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, constantly in action, which is together called as prakriti. See, so many words I'm using, all to go to the root of our personality. I am the screen, Prakriti does all the actions. I am the pure consciousness in which the Prakriti comes and goes. The waker I comes, the dreamer I comes, the sleeper I comes. Again the next day, again the next day. But what is remaining constant? The pure consciousness. And what remains constant in this body is the I thought, which is a reflection of that consciousness in this body. Identifying with the organs of knowledge, I become the Pramatta, the knower. I become a knower of the form, knower of the sound, knower of the touch, knower of the taste, knower of the smell. When I identify with the organs of action, I am called as the doer, karta, or a bhokta. Now, chitta spandanam, this is used in Mandukya 4th chapter, alata shanti pracharanam. So there, this spandana means what? Spandana means it is a rotation of thoughts. Chitta spandanam. This mind inside, that is what is called as chitta. And there are continuous movement, changes happening. Aham thought, idam thought. Ego consciousness, world consciousness. When I use the sense organs, I become I become aware of the world. Now I am listening to the talk, I become aware of the thought, it is idam. When I say to myself, I want to sleep now, that is aham, the ego I. So movement of the mind establishes the objects. Without the movement of the mind, I am there, but not as a Pramatta, but as a pure Sakshi. The movement establishes the ego I, the Pramatta. In consciousness, there is no movement and there is no division. Akhanda, that is why we say pure consciousness is homogeneous mass. Pure consciousness, no, nothing in it. Pramata, Pramanam, and Prameyam are jadam by nature, inert by nature, but what gives them the life is the Sakshi, which is the sentient principle. So with that, we have finished the 7th mantra. Just to revise, the 7th mantra talks about 2 types of vrittis. One is aham vritti, second is idam vritti. Aham vritti means internal, refers to the body when I am identified with it, or the mind when I'm identified with it, my emotions. Idam vritti means all other thoughts which I use, which comes to me through the sense organs. The 8th mantra says, I mean, these are all continuation of the 9th and 10th mantra. Will talk about the definition of Sakshi. So 6, 7, and 8 are discussing the mind aspect, how the Sakshi and the mind are related. The external things that are cognized by the mind in a general way, their special qualities have been jumbled up. So when I'm in the waking state, when I'm the conscious person in the waking state, I'm not able to recognize this consciousness. Why? Because the vrittis which are coming, the thoughts which are, the perceptions which are coming through the sense organs are combined with the I, with the pure I, with the Pramatta I. That is why when in the Jagrata Avastha, it becomes difficult for me to understand my pure nature. So what happens to the idam thought is expanded in this verse. In the 8th verse, in the 7th verse, we saw I thought and this thought. In the 8th verse, Vidyaranya is focusing on this thought. This thought consists of 5 sense objects. In the Western philosophy, there are 2 types of philosophers. One is a realist, another is an idealist. A realist is one who sees the real objects, the world outside, and he thinks that the being is only outside. That means there is nothing else. It's just me and the world. Whereas an idealist, he will say the thought cognition of the world is in the mind. It's whatever is outside is seen only in the mind. It's only a process which is going on in the mind. Perception is nothing but recognition. So the being is only inside, he is not outside at all. So these are the 2 broad, when you study the philosophers, Western philosophy, and you go to college and do the philosophy course, this is how the Western philosophers are divided. What does Vedanta say? Vedanta says that objective world is not real. The subjective world is also not real because it's Pramatta. The truth lies beyond them. The idam vritti is always a objective vritti, a vritti coming from the objects which are outside. But the vritti, the thought, is inside. The object is outside, but the thought is inside. What we say is that the whole world is there in the mind. And in the mind as vrittis only. Ishavasam idagam sarvam yat kinchai jagatyam jagat. This is a very popular verse of the Ishavasya Upanishad. What it says is the entire universe is enveloped by this consciousness. The whole world is nothing else but it's reflected in consciousness as the idam vrittis. Even in Bhagavad Gita, you see, these are all expansions of the idam word. You know, this mantra, 8th mantra, is an expansion of the idam word, idam vritti. In Bhagavad Gita, the 13th chapter, idam shariram kaunteya kshetram idimityade etat yo vetitam prahuhu kshetraknyam iti tatvidaha. Lord Krishna very beautifully says that idam shariram, this body. The moment he says idam means what? It is a vritti, not, it is a vritti which is anatma. And what is the kshetraknya? Kshetraknya is the pure consciousness, which is the real I. So outside our body is called yushmat pratyaya. These are all again words which we have used, which comes not only here, but it also comes in adhyasa bhashyam. Yushmat pratyaya. Yushmat means this thought and I thought. Asmat pratyaya, yushmat pratyaya. Body is pervaded by thisness, which is called as idamta. Idamta means the whole body is referred as idam. Any part of the body, that means, you see, we feel that the awareness principle is there throughout our body, right? Now, this awareness principle is there throughout from my toe to the top of my head. It is idam. It is the consciousness which is going through our mind and it spreads throughout our body. So I am aware of myself means what? That consciousness is a pure awareness, but in this body, it becomes aware. The consciousness pervades the body. The logic is, I am is aham, deha vilakshana kshetraknya. That means when I am not identified with the body, then it becomes vilakshana. Vilakshana means what? Beyond the body, there is an aham, which is the pure consciousness, kshetraknya. The process of perception is explained here. We have seen this many times. I just want to revise it again. Idam means it is a five-fold classification known by the mind through the sense organs. 5 sense objects are all called as idam vrittis, the vrittis which are perceived. The image is generated as a sensation, an electrical pulse in our mind. It is all the nerve currents which are perceived in the mind. So even though you may feel that, you know, I see the world immediately, actually this is how it happens. The process of perception is beautifully described in Dakshinamurti Stotra, the 3rd verse. So we perceive the world through the net of desires and fears which are colored by our perception. So we see the world through the sense organs, then we have our own likes and dislikes, our fears in our mind, and then what we see is our own subjective world. We see what we want to see. That means what? Every perception is colored by me. I like this, I don't like this. I like to eat masala dosa, I don't like masala dosa. I want a sandwich. Why the difference? Because of our own likes and dislikes in the mind. Therefore, each one of us is different. What Vidyaranya is saying is we perceive only the sensations and not the objective world. The world is as real as your sensations are. Idam ye visheshaha syuhu. This is not perceived really. Fivefold sensations that idam generates in you, you cognize and you perceive. They are not real in nature. What is real in nature is consciousness. Gandha, Rupa, all, whether it is Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasagandha, they are all perceptions. They are all impulses in the brain. The mind categorizes them as samskaras, desirable and non-desirable. The seer consciousness is alone the real. That means the Sakshi. Pure Sakshi is alone the real, whereas all these perceptions, they come and go, come and go. In the waking state, it comes. In the dream state, it is together, altogether different types of perceptions. In the sleep state, none of the perceptions are there. The collective sensation, which is a substratum for all the perceptions, is called as the reality. Therefore, what is the world? The world is nothing else but Ishvara. Because it is Ishvara, the pure consciousness, in a different form, in different form of impulses from the sense objects to the mind. Asankarena means different sensations are perceived. There is no mix-up. That means when I see a form, there is no mix-up between form and sound. Why? Because each of these are through one particular sense organs. The truth is neither outside or inside. It is neither idealism or realism, but it is beyond both of them. Truth is consciousness in which the division appears and disappears. This is how you perceive the idam vrittis. This is the creation. What a beautiful creation it is by Ishvara. When you study this type of text, you understand what intelligence has gone behind this creation of the human being. Indriya Panchakam, this is just a Tattvabodha example. In Tattvabodha, we have studied that the nose smells, which is an object. But the nose is the predominant factor of the earth element, which is the Prithvi. The tongue is tasting and it is formed by the predominant element of water, apaha. The eyes are sense organs for rupam, and they are formed with the predominant factor of the Agni Tattvam, Tejaha. The skin from Vayuhu, and the Shrotra Indriyam from Akasha principle. So generally what we are trying to say here is that the world which we perceive is only a short-lived sensation, whereas the real truth is the consciousness principle, which is continuously there, which is always there. It never gets divided. And the moment you start looking at your mind inward, which is called as antar mukatwam, then you will be able to dwell on this consciousness. And when you delve in this consciousness, you get liberated from the world outside and your internal world of emotions and thoughts. Eka Vijnane ne Sarva Vijnanam Bhavati. In Chandogya Upanishad, Shaunaka asks his father, teach me one knowledge by which I can know the entire universe. This is the knowledge of that pure consciousness, the Sakshi principle. And in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is a beautiful mantra which says, what are the footprints of the Atma? And the footprints are nothing but the sense organs and the sense objects. When I start seeing the footprints in my own mind of the form, then I can see my own real self. In every thought, we should focus on the content consciousness, not on the name and form. Nama Rupam is appearance, but the content is consciousness. Asti Bhati Priyam, that is the Dhritrishya Viveka we have studied. Focus on the consciousness which exists, which is illumined, and which is lovable. Satchitananda. Hold to that consciousness as aham and drop the appearance which is idam. So recognize the footprints of idam vrittis, that is the footprint, but then ultimately you see the truth, and which is Atma. Adhyatma Yoga means looking at yourself, seeing your own true nature, which is awareness, consciousness. It is a journey. Adhyatma Yoga means it is a journey from yourself to yourself, to your consciousness, from ego to Sakshi. And the journey is guided through the process of the thoughts which go in the mind. Atma, Satchidananda Atma is a Lakshanam, Swarupa Lakshanam, pure consciousness, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. Whenever we use that, you must remember it is a direct definition of me, myself. And what is the indirect definition? Indirect definition is Tatastha Lakshanam, which is what is called as implied meaning, implied definition. What is the implied definition of I? The implied definition is it is a Jagat Karanam. That pure consciousness is a cause of this world. And it can exist by itself also independently as Satchid Anand. Shrotrasya Shrotram Manaso Manoyad, Keno Upanishad mantra also talks of the same consciousness behind the ears, behind the thoughts, behind the tongue, behind the speech. It is this pure I. We endure the pain of the sense organs and take the name of the Lord and live our life. We need to grow from world consciousness to God consciousness and then to self-consciousness. First, we recognize the world. Then we say there is a creator of this world. I become conscious of God. Then I say, I want to know that God in myself. I go into Adhyatma Yoga. Means what? I understand my mind. Aham vritti, idam vritti. When I go beyond the aham vritti, which is a Pramatta, understand that I am the pure consciousness. Bhagavatam names, 3 names are used: Bhagavan, Paramatma, and Brahma. When I use Bhagavan, then I am a refugee of a devotee of the Lord. When I say Paramatma, then I'm talking about the reality of the core of the being in the entire universe, which can be called as Brahma. In our own mind, when I want to see that core of that God in me, it is called as I am looking at Paramatma in my own self. But anyway, these are all just names. But what we have to understand is the reality is beyond names. It is my consciousness, awareness principle itself, which is pure. Each sensation is a footprint of the ultimate truth. Like you locate a cow in a forest with the help of footprints, you trace Atma with the sensations coming from the sense organs to your mind. So these are the two verses we have seen. 6, 7, 8, 3 verses talk about how the mind gets the vrittis, aham vritti and idam vritti. Aham vritti is used when I'm looking at myself as the body or as the mind. Idam vritti means it is a vritti which is used whenever I use the sense organs. So if this is clear, next week we are going to now go into the definition of Sakshi. What is the definition of Sakshi? It is something beyond this Pramatta, Pramanam, and Prameya. That is what we will study next week. Okay, so that was today's 2 verses, which we did, 7 and 8. Next week we'll go into 9. See, this text of Panchadasi is very, very deep. I'm going slow, I'm explaining slowly so that each one of us can go deeper and deeper into our own mind. Like I said, reflect on these verses, revisit through the notes, through the talk. You can listen to any other commentary if you wish to, but these verses will lead you to the ultimate truth. The entire text of Panchadasi is very, very interesting, but it requires a lot of patience and tremendous ability to hold on to the study. Every verse. Oh. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachade Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyade. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. If you have any questions, you can type it on the chat box or you can ask me directly. Anybody has a question?
Sakshi,
Bolo Babai.
I have a question regarding verse 7, the heading shows that become one with the mind.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Become one with the mind.
Hmm.
Yeah, you become one with the mind means that you are that mind which you think is different today is nothing but it is pure consciousness. It is that Atma in you. So drop your mind, the thoughts which come to you, and then be yourself, be your pure nature. That's all. Be as Atma. You see, today the mind is different, Atma is the self is different, Atma is different.
But to become one with mind, what do you mean by to become one with the mind?
Yeah, to become one with the mind means to know that mind does not exist separate from me, the consciousness.
But it's separate from the consciousness, right? The mind is different from.
Yes, you see, the mind is different from the consciousness when you have vrittis, when you have thoughts. But suppose there is no thought in you. Okay, so you're not thinking of going out, you're not thinking about your son, you're not thinking about your body. At that time, the mind and the Atma become one.
Atma becomes one.
When you don't have any thoughts, suppose you're not thinking of anything, you just close your eyes and you're not aware of anything which is there because you have closed your eyes, you're not aware of any outside things. Then what happens is the mind becomes the Atma.
Oh. So if we say the mind is an instrument of the thought, right?
Correct. You see, you can decide and say, I want to listen to music. Then what happens is, that means you're using your mind as an instrument to listen to music. Without the mind, you cannot listen to music. You cannot listen to a class. You cannot listen to anything outside. So at that time, what you are doing is you're using your mind as an instrument. And you are using it to use the sense organs anytime. Suppose you say, no, I don't want to listen to anything. I don't want to see any color and form. I don't want to taste anything. I don't want to smell anything. That time you are not using the mind as an instrument. You are just using it as a subject, as I am. Pure consciousness is getting reflected in the mind, and you are saying, I'm not using the mind with the instruments. So that is what is called as aham vritti, the I thought.
But last week we discussed regarding the question. I was telling you that the best way to know the mind is to know that there is no mind.
Ah, that's correct. You see, you should just say that the mind is just something which just comes and goes. So the way you know the mind is, it is not real. You see, the thing is, it is not real. It is just it's like a shadow, it just comes and goes. So if I ask you, what was your mind doing 2 days ago, 3 days ago? It's gone, finished, it's gone. It is no more there. So it's, even today morning, your mind was there, but then what did it do? You have forgotten all about it. So the mind is just a continuous, it is there, it is not there. It is there, it is not there. It comes and goes. That is why we say that don't take your mind very seriously. Otherwise what happens is people keep worrying, worrying about something. So therefore, the Shastra says that learn to use the mind as an instrument when you want to use it. Suppose you want to use the mind and say, I want to listen to the class. That is good. You are using your willpower to use the mind. At that time, it is an instrument. The more you use your mind as an instrument, you become a controller of the mind.
Because it's part of our body, right? The mind.
Yes, the mind is a subtle part of the body. The body is a gross body. Inside this gross body, there is a subtle mind. And inside that subtle mind, there is a karana shariram. A karana shariram means all the impressions of your previous births. It is there. Your tendency, it is there. And beyond these three sharirams is this Sakshi. So you can easily get rid of this I thought in the body and say, I am not this I thought, I am the pure I. That is what the scriptures want you to realize as your nature.
So, because of the two eyes we have.
Yes, there are two, correct. There are two eyes. One eye is the ego eye, which is a shadow eye, which is the one which does all the work throughout the morning, afternoon, evening. It is not the real eye. The real eye is the one which is shining beyond the body.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else has any question?
Mr. Shekhar,
Yeah, Jacqueline.
I have a question. Just now you were teaching, and there was this statement called in English, the footprint guided by Atma or something like that.
Yeah. The footprint of the mind is what you should try to see and then realize your Atma.
The footprint of the mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
You see, what happens is through the footprint, suppose there is an animal which is lost. A cow is there in a forest and it is lost and you don't know where the cow is gone. So what you do is you see the footprint of the legs of the cow on the ground, and then you say, oh, this cow has gone here, gone here, gone here. And then you keep on going along with that, and then you find the cow. Now, in consciousness, you want to discover that consciousness. So what you do, you find out where is this thought going? Where is this rising from? The footprint of the thought you follow, and then you will realize, oh, the consciousness is there right at the beginning and right at the end of the thought.
Yes,
That's all. That is what I mean by footprint.
Okay, that is exactly, yeah. So as a human being, our thoughts every day when we are awake, it comes and goes. And in fact, it is illuminated by the pure consciousness. And therefore, there are hundreds of thoughts that come in and out. And then pure consciousness is there to illuminate all these thoughts. But how do I know that how do I know that as a human? Of course, I may know because I study. If I don't study, how do I know that which thought it is correct for me, which is the correct footpath for me to follow to go,
Yeah.
That is what, because as good as the thought, the human mind is a tool, is an instrument, but then it is illuminated by the pure consciousness. So let's say if I want to have 1 + 1 is equal to 2, yeah, because illuminated because I have studied before. But then during the uncertain time, of course, because if my emotion is calm, maybe it is a correct movement. But if my emotion is jittering, maybe it's not. But sometimes when the emotion is jittering, and maybe it's correct. So it's a bit confusing as a human being, what is correct or what is not correct, because everything is illuminated by pure consciousness.
Okay, there are 2 questions here. One question is about what is right thought and what is wrong thought. Now, that is a different subject compared to pure consciousness, because consciousness, if you want to locate consciousness, that is different matter. If you want to know what is the right thought and what is the wrong thought, then you have to study the, you go by your experience of the world. What is good, what is bad, each one, for you it may be right, for me it may not be right. So it is subjective. So your question regarding right and wrong is very, very subjective. A consciousness is only the light which illumines the thoughts. It doesn't tell you whether it is right or wrong. It is your own mind which has to judge. Your own intellect you have to use to judge whether something is right or wrong. For a criminal also, the consciousness illumines his thoughts. It never says that his thoughts are wrong. For a wise man, for a sage also, it illumines the thoughts. Like the sun, for example, it illumines the whole earth. It pervades the whole earth. The sunlight or the light in the room, it pervades all the objects which are there. Now, your question about knowing the consciousness, that you should, how to differentiate the consciousness from the mind. For that, the answer is, this mind which you have is not a permanent thing. You see, it is there in the waking state. In the sleep state, you don't have any thoughts, but you are there. So you need to differentiate the thought and consciousness. In sleep, I am there without the thoughts. I exist. I am the witness of the mind without any thoughts. In the waking state, I am aware, I am the Sakshi, and I am aware of the thoughts and the world because my sense organs are open. So this is how you have to differentiate the mind and differentiate what is that illuminator of the mind. And don't focus on the mind, but focus on the light of consciousness, which is your reality. Own up, don't look at, okay, for the world, when we are interacting, you follow the world, whatever is right, you do right things, you do your duty, that is a different matter. But when you ask the question, who am I? Come to consciousness. That is what is the teaching.
By learning from you, I'm convinced mostly that during the sleep, I don't have any thoughts. Okay, recently I confirm. Okay, of course I know, but then I couldn't confirm because I'm a human being.
Yeah.
But now I'm convinced that yes, there's no thoughts at all during the sleep except the waking and the dreaming.
Yes.
But then as a human, I'm like, if the pure consciousness is always there, happy, Satchit Ananda, that means existent, happy and blissful.
Yes.
And then why on earth that it is using the instrument of mind to create such a havoc, double, I shouldn't say this because if I'm consciousness, I shouldn't say it. But then it's like create dramatic happiness and sorrow to the human being.
Yeah. See, this is where you have to use the scriptures and tell yourself, I come to know about this consciousness not by anything in the world. You know, the consciousness is revealed by the scriptures. It is not revealed by anything in the world, not by eyes, not by ears, not whatever. Whatever the eyes reveal is only an object. So your question is, why should we have suffering and why should we interact and why should we have so much of, why should the consciousness decide to join hands with the mind and have this life? That's your question, right?
I think you put it very well. Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now the answer to that is, you do not know. Your ignorance about Atma or this consciousness is the problem. It is not the consciousness. The problem is with the ignorance I have about myself. This is you're hitting the nail on the real problem. The real problem is not the consciousness. Consciousness is very happy. It is Satchidananda. It is never ever tired of illuminating all thoughts. If the thoughts come, it will illuminate. If there are no thoughts, it will still illuminate that there is nothing except itself. So as pure consciousness itself, it is always happy. Like in sleep, do you feel happy in sleep or do you feel very sad when you get up? Always everybody, whether you or whether it is Bhavai or Rao or Vijay or anybody, after sleep, when we get up, we all feel like going back to sleep. We don't want to, we want to have another 10 minutes of sleep. So the sleep state is, we are there, the mind is not there, but we are happy. It is a direct method to say that when the mind is not producing thoughts, I am happy with myself, which is pure consciousness. So all of us, by nature, we are happy, and as soon as you wake up, you said, I had a good sleep. Unless you had a very horrible dream, that is a different matter. If you had a good deep sleep, then you say, I was happy. At the same time, I didn't know anything. Now, the ignorance about my nature, that means I can remain happy without any objects in the world, without any thought in the world, without using my sense organs. That is the nature. That is my real nature. But the problem is, due to ignorance, I identify with the body and the mind. What the scriptures are telling is, stop identifying this and be happy. That's all. This is the way to understand your question. The problem is identification. It is nothing to do with right and wrong and suffering and all that. All that you will get rid of it the moment you understand that I have ignorance about myself. I want to drop this ignorance. I want to be the pure Sakshi throughout my life.
Because of the
Yes, because so you drop your ignorance and you realize what you are. That's all. Then you will say that, oh my God, why didn't I realize this before? It is always there. It is my nature.
Yes.
That is the confidence by which you will say this.
Yes, as human being, we are here, therefore we identify.
Correct.
If I don't identify, for example, if I don't identify myself, I will not be in this class today.
Correct.
Right?
Yes. You are identified with the body. What I'm saying is that to answer your question about why, you are asking that question, that why the consciousness should get involved with the mind itself.
Yes.
That is because you are ignorant.
Yes.
Okay. The moment you say, I am now knowledgeable, then you will not, then that question will disappear.
Yes, I'm going towards that direction.
Very good.
Appreciate.
Thank you. Deham is idam, but dehoyam is my jadasya buddhi. Why and when that aham and idam within me happens. You see, this aham and idam, it happens again. The answer to this question is again ignorance only. Avidya, that karana shariram, avidya is causing this problem of aham and idam. As long as you see the body, as long as you know the existence of this body, you will have aham and idam. You cannot escape from aham and idam till the body is there. So the moment the body is known by you, as soon as you wake up in the morning, the body is known. The aham comes, idam comes. What you should, it is only an understanding that I exist without this aham and idam. And that is my real nature, which is called as Sakshi. It is an understanding. It is not an objectification. It is known as the subject. This is how you should learn to drop the aham and idam, which is the Pramatta. But what you need to note is, whenever this aham is there, I will know that I am the pure aham. For example, when you see the moonlight, you know at the back of your mind that there is a sun which is getting reflected in the moon. And my perception of the moonlight will not go away. I will still continue to see the moonlight. But now when I see the moon, I will say, oh, it is not the light of the moon which is there. It is the light of sun which is getting reflected in the matter principle, which is the moon. Similarly, in this aham and idam, whenever it comes in the morning, as soon as you wake up, whenever you realize this aham and idam, you should note, oh, this is my real nature, is the pure consciousness, which I was in my sleep state. It is now appearing as this body and mind. That is the way you realize. Is it clear, Vijay?
Yes, Shekharji.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, anybody
Because
else has a question? Yeah.
I just wanted to extend this 1 minute, 1 second. What happens is when it comes to the sense objects, which is idam, the jagat idam, I say I distance it from it. I mean, I know that that's also jagat, but it is a TV. It is a flower. It is
Yes.
you know, to some extent because of my excessive possession, maybe the likes and disraga dvesha, I could still go ahead and say this is my TV. To that extent, it happens. Whereas there is a thin line when I say this is my body to I am the body. That is where I would never make that mistake with I am the TV. Whereas with the body, it is easy to say I am the body instead of saying this is my body, right? So that is where I just say what really makes me.
Yeah, you are right, because it is the vasana.
Yeah.
It is my vasana because of which I identify with this body as me. And this vasana is what I'm trying to get rid of. By the study of the scriptures, this vasanas will get burnt. And the ignorance about myself will be gone only when this deha vasanas are gone. Till then, you will still be identifying with the body and you will still be committing the mistakes which has been done in the past also. It will not go away. It will not just go away, but there is a time when you will realize, and at that time when it happens, oh my God, how come I was like this before? You know, you suddenly realize that I am always that pure consciousness. So it is called as deha vasana. Deha vasana is a very, very difficult to clear. You know, our vasana is so strong, our identification, this is where it is called as adhyasa. You know, the adhyasa, the superimposition comes automatically. It will never go till the body is there. But through knowledge, this vasanas can go away. That is why we study. You know, when we listen to our real nature, what happens is that the more we listen, especially Panchadasi, when you go through the Panchadasi, the 10 chapters, and every time you listen, there is a new concept which goes deeper and deeper into your own mind and intellect. And then what happens is, when you're taught the Mahavakya, at that time, the principles of Mahavakya, when they are taught, you will find that what is called as this upadi, you know, this medium, your mind, your own intellect will say, oh, this is a medium. You know, it is not my real nature. Your mind will then understand it is a medium which is causing the problem, and medium I cannot stop. Yeah. So this will happen. It is a very good question, but it's a practical question. it's the only answer to your question is just let your study continue.
Thank you, Shri. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Shekhar sir, I have one question here.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how do you differentiate Atma with consciousness or Chaitanya?
No, Atman is the same as consciousness or Chaitanya. Same. There is
So
no difference.
Chaitanya is all
Yes.
all pervading, right? Chaitanya
Yes.
is all pervading, and it exists no matter whether there is life or not.
Yes, you are right. Consciousness, Atma, always exists, whether there is the earth is available, whether you see anything or not, it is always there. I am is the ultimate thing which is always there. Always there means do not try to identify this as an object. Don't make that mistake. I am always there as a subject, not as an object. This is a very important principle of Vedanta. Many people, they want to make that Atma also as an object. The moment you make Atma as an object, it becomes Jadam. It is no longer conscious. I am the only consciousness in the entire universe. There is nothing called as consciousness in the entire universe. When I see another human being, you are not seeing the consciousness. You are only seeing the Jada body. You can't see the consciousness. The sentiency is only one factor, which is their common factor in all of us. So to answer your question, consciousness is the all-pervading. It exists without the universe.
And the consciousness lends the prana shakti to the body, correct?
No. You see, it's like this. The pranas are also like another upadhi. Upadhi means medium. Next, in the next verse it will come. But just to tell you, consciousness is separate. That is the life. What is visible to us is the prana, the air which we are, vayu tattvam, which we are breathing. Now, for all practical purposes, the prana is what is the life. For all, suppose you are not coming to Vedanta, or you are not studying the spiritual Bhagavad Gita or Upanishads, you will say the prana is life. Because I am breathing, I have life in me, the body has got life. If the body doesn't breathe, it doesn't have life. But what Vedanta says is, that is not the correct picture. It is not the right vision.
No, is consciousness actually lending the energy to the prana?
It lends, and yes, you are right. It lends energy. It lends, when you say energy, it is a life principle. It is the
Exactly.
life. Yes,
So
no problem. It lends the life principle to prana.
No matter whether the body is, no matter the body is alive or dead. Even with the dead body, the consciousness exists.
Yes.
But since the prana is not active, the body is dead.
Correct.
However, in a sentient body, the prana is active because of consciousness, and consciousness is responsible for the prana to be active.
Yes, you are right. Absolutely right. You got it. Your understanding is perfect.
Thank you.
Very good. Very, very deep question, but you've got the answer.
Well, I have a few more questions, but perhaps I should wait for the Panchadasi to go through.
Yeah. Please go through it. The Panchadasi is it's a great text. All your questions will be answered one by one. Just go through each chapter. We'll be studying the different chapters. As of now, I've decided to take after this, either I will take the third chapter or the fifth chapter. I'm writing notes on them. The class notes right now is getting ready. So I will. I'm planning to take Panchadasi for the next 1 year for all the Wednesday class groups. I will be taking this text because I find this text can take you to the depth of your consciousness, and it is only interested students who will love this text. because you must have interest to know and reach that, you must have a keen desire to know that real self. Then you will enjoy this text. So anyway, let's see the interest of the group, and then your questions, all your questions will get answered. As soon as you finish Panchadasi, you will find you are a fresh new person. Okay, anybody else? Okay, if there are no questions, we'll close. Thank you. Malati, you didn't ask any question today.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, Shri. Good night.
Thank you. Hari Om.